I think that counting the amount of books that you read is a one-way ticket to burnout. Now, there is an alternative that is much better than counting. So, the first reason why you should not count how many books you read is quality over quantity. This is probably the reason when you search around in the net, in the web, to why you should not count how many books. And it's true. You want to focus on the quality of the books that you read over the quantity of the books. So I'm guilty of this. In the past, I would read a book like a novella or something really short just so I can pad up the numbers that I read. And that was, the wrong way of looking at it because I wasn't really having an authentic engagement to whatever it is that I am reading. I'm just doing it because I want to pad up the number. And I would stay away from really long books like 700, 800, or even 1,000 pages just because it takes so long to read through all that. And I would just go for really short books. And that's what I did for a year. And after that, I burnt out. And yeah, my favorite book, one of my favorite books, and my other favorite books, they're almost always 500 pages and above. And those are fiction books. So they really get you into the story. One of them is called Stormlight Archive. And that book is 1,000 pages. The recent one is like 1,200 pages. So it is definitely not a quick read. It is equivalent to an entire trilogy. So if I want to pad up my numbers, then it's not the book to go. So focus on quality over quantity. There's a lot of books that are, even if it's long, they allow you to be more immersed in the story, which is, it bridges to why I love long movies, is because I really want to feel what it's like to be in the world. And I feel like an hour and a half movies are just too short. They don't really get into the character. They don't get into the lore of the story. Man, why am I that's a tangent. This is why I need this post-it. The second reason is, I mentioned it before, is authentic engagement. If you're just reading something because you want to increase the number of the books that you read, you're not really engaged to that story. Assuming that you just picked it up just because it's for the end of increasing the number, not really because you're genuinely interested in the story or the author itself. And I would suggest that you follow a book or a story or an author that you're genuinely interested in, because if you don't, it's a recipe for a burnout. You don't want to feel like you're in school and you're reading Shakespeare. I don't know if you like Shakespeare, but if you do, then go for it, man. You know how teachers force you to read something and they're almost always boring as fuck. And so read something that you're interested in just so you don't burn out as easily. And there are so many interesting stories out there, and fortunately some of them are really long and they really allow you to be immersed in the story or in the idea of what the author is trying to get to you. So authentic engagement is the second reason why you should not count the books that you read. The third reason is reading itself is not a competition. You're not in school, there's no tournament, there's no one grading you for anything. The only person that's grading you is yourself. And so reading is not a competition. There's sports for that, and I don't think that that is what reading should be. I don't know if there's a reading sport, actually. Maybe that's a good idea. But there's something called speed reading, but it's not really, again, authentic engagement. Deep understanding of something requires a little bit more than speed reading. So What was I talking about again? Yeah, it's not a competition. My God. Uh, Reading is not a competition. If you want to compete, there's other sports. And, you know, book clubs, they usually just go through one book at a time. And no one is saying, no one's raising their hand finished after a book is read. You can take your time in it. And I would suggest that you do, because each book is, the books that for me, that have affected me as much are the ones where I really took my time in taking in the story and taking in the idea of the author. So I'm glad that I did that. I'm also a very slow reader, and I'm one of those where I tend to vocalize whatever I'm reading in my head. And yeah, I see people who can just read with their eyes. Fortunately, I can't do that, but I still go through a fair amount of books. It's just that with my style of reading, and also the way that I approach reading, which is I take my time. I don't go through a lot. And, I've been on the other side, and I do enjoy the act of reading much more on this side when I'm authentically and deeply engaging with the book and not treating it as competition. The fourth one is connected to the third one, which is you want to read at your own pace. I told you I'm a slow reader, so if you read 20 pages a day or 50 pages a day or 100 pages a week, that is at your own pace. And one of the recipes for burnout is forcing yourself much more than what you can take. And because reading is not a competition, you want to read it at your own pace. And if you are counting the amount of books that you do, then you're kind of putting yourself in this corner of, I have to get through this, I have to get through this, not because I want to get through this book. I don't know if that makes sense. Hopefully it does, because we're going on to the last point, which is, I think, the most important. Counting the amount of books that you read or even own, it's a consumer mindset. I read this on an article once, and it talked about how owning and buying a book is a different hobby than reading a book. And I subscribe to that belief now, and I'm also guilty of, just buying for the sake of buying something. And you know how you get that dopamine hit whenever you buy something new or something shiny. And to me, for a point in time, owning and buying books was that for me. And I really loved, like fancy covers and leather bounds and all that fancy shit for a book. I thought that it looked really good on the shelf, and I wanted to populate my shelves back then. And so there was a point in time when I said, you know what, I really want to enjoy this hobby, this act of learning and being immersed in stories. And so I'm not going to concentrate on numbers at all. And I used to be one of those people who would have a Goodreads account, and I would put a number for example, like 2024, I want to read this much. And so I did that, and I burnt out. So if you can see behind me, I have a bookshelf there. I don't know if it's obvious. It's quite minimal. There's only 2 layers of books, and I've given away so many books in the past. Before I moved, I actually had, I think, a good 2 to 3 shelves of books, and when I moved, I gave it away to friends. Most of them didn't read it, and I gave it away to donation centers. And sometimes if I think that I own too much, I just get rid of it. I don't throw it out in the garbage, because I think that other people should also enjoy what I enjoy. And the best way, I think it's a great feeling if the stories I enjoy are shared with other people. And so I like giving away my books. And I really don't have an attachment or specific attachment to one book, because stories are plenty, And once you read a book, it's always going to be here. And if I want to go back to reading it, then I have a Notion document where I put everything that I read. I put my review there of the book, which is just for me. I put my pros and cons, the moments that I enjoyed from it, and what I learned from it. And I have this little Notion database of most of the books that I read for the year, which is a tangent from what I was talking about, which is the consumer mindset of reading. So don't count your books, because this is why I need bullet points, man. I'm just going on tangents. Because it promotes consumer mindset. You want to focus on the stories itself. And I was talking about like an alternative before to counting the books. And this is the more effective, I think, and also more productive way of looking at book reading. And that is, instead of counting how many books you read in a year, count how many ideas and lessons that you've learned for that year. I think that's pretty fucking revolutionary, man. Some books you might not learn anything new, and that's okay. And that way you prioritize your learning over consumption of just something. And so some books you could learn like 3 or 6 lessons at a time, and some maybe just 1 and 2. So by focusing on the amount of, not even the amount, but the quality of ideas that you get from each read, I think it makes reading so much more reflective. And it allows us to reflect on whatever it is that we read. It makes us more intentional for when we get into the next book, and also for our previous book, we get the value from spending $20 or $30 for that book by extracting the ideas and extracting the lessons from that. And so those are my 5 reasons and the alternative to counting books. I hope you liked it, and I rambled on too much. So till the next one, peace.